here today. I've got a couple of things on the agenda, but we're going to start with call to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. And John, want to lead us off?
Pledge
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just reminded everybody we're being webcasted, so be on your best behavior. First order of business is the approval of the minutes of May 6, 2013. Actually, before I do that, I am going to recognize through personal observation that we have a quorum here, but let's go around and introduce ourselves before we go. Start with Fred there.
Fred Walter, University Senate.
Carol Gomes, President of the Alumni Association.
Jean Garon, member of the board.
Leonard Benedict, member of the board.
John Corrado, council member.
Diana Weir, Councilman.
Jim Morgo, council member.
Frank Trotta, council member.
Lou Howard, council.
Mallory Locklear, Secretary of the Graduate Student Organization.
Well, Marissa Trachtenberg, Special Assistant to the President.
Good. Well, now I will certainly recognize a quorum. In fact, we have almost a full house here, and want to welcome Mallory Locklear. She's the Secretary of the Graduate Student Organization and the new voting member for this year on the council, so welcome.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, so now I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes of May 6, 2013, moved by Frank, seconded by Diana. Any comments or questions or revisions or additions to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. My chairman's report will be brief. Just a couple of housekeeping items. We still have not heard anything from the governor's office on any appointments or reappointments. They've been hanging out there for a long time. You could be, if your term has expired, you could serve for another year or so. Or you could get a letter tomorrow saying that you've been replaced or extended. We don't know, but I would just ask you all to just continue serving, even if your term has expired, because it could go on for some time.
He's busy.
Okay, just a bit. And remember, there are 64 councils in addition to hundreds of other boards and commissions, and it just takes a long time to make these appointments. Also, had the pleasure of last Friday being with Sam at the dedication of the new Marine Science Center, which is now called SOMAS. Sam, the acronym stands for again?
Atmospheric science.
Yeah, that's it. It was so much easier. For 30 years, I was calling the Marine Science Center. Beautiful facility, and since about 5 of us made it out there for the event and the tour, we were able to move the meeting today back to Stony Brook. So, Diana, sorry for the extra.
I work here anyway, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's true. And finally, it was so exciting again to be part of this institution with the recent rankings coming out and the new U.S. News World Report ranking for Stony Brook, which puts us again in the elite of the elite. So very exciting, and Sam, I'm sure, will have more to share on that. And actually, one of our council members has a special presentation he'd like to make related to that. Frank?
Sam,
Yes.
it's usually you giving these out, so on behalf of the council here, we would like to make a presentation to you. Greatness comes in all different forms, and since your arrival, we've had a lot of greatness. You've surrounded yourself and brought in the best of the best, and this university has risen to another level, and we thank you for it. And on behalf of us, this is a little appreciation.
No? Oh, we get one later. Yeah.
We have
Mike?
phones, we have
We can take a camera.
Maybe at the end we can
At the
take
end, we'll
everything.
take a photo. All right.
Group picture.
Very nice. So, thank you, Frank. And with that, I have no other items on my agenda other than to welcome back from a great summer. Hard to believe we're already in the middle of October, and off to a great fall semester here at Stony Brook. With that, I'll hand it over to our president, Sam.
So thank you so much, Kevin, and again, welcome back to everybody. And actually, my report is in front of you, I hope, but I'll highlight a number of things since it has been a while since we met. First of all, great start to the new semester of fall 2013. On the undergraduate side, again, we have our best class ever. I always am reluctant to say that to current students, but it is our best class ever, and alums. High school GPA has gone up now to 93. Median SAT score now is up to 1240. It's at 1300 for the engineering school component, so we continue to attract outstanding students. We had 30,000 applications. We broke the 30,000 mark for 2,700 spots in the first year class, so it continues to be a fantastic, incredibly attractive place for students.
30,000 for 2,700 seats in the freshman class?
Correct.
Wow.
Correct. Yeah. So great numbers, and and Matt, who's here, has had a lot to do with that, and I'll mention that again in a second. But great work from the numbers.
So 9 out of 10 don't get accepted?
So no, the acceptance rates are higher. So the acceptance rate
Oh,
is
sorry.
probably around 40%, and it ends up about 2,700 of that come. But that selectivity is actually very high for public universities. So we're number 6 among all AAU schools and how selective we are, and the number we actually accept to the university. So we're very selective as well. So we had a great fundraising year in 2012, 2013. We raised $83 million in new gifts, which is one of our highest totals ever. Everyone knows about the Simon's Challenge, and listed in your handout is a number of the highlights, and I'll just let you go through that rather than going through things individually. The Global Health Institute is very exciting. That's a gift from Jim and Robin Bernstein, $3 million to create a Global Health Institute that will be based in Madagascar. We're in the process of selecting the Institute director, and we've had amazing applicants essentially apply for this. So I think it's going to be something exciting, and I look forward to coming back and talking about it more in the future. But there's all sorts of accomplishments here, and again, my thanks to everybody on the senior leadership team who's been involved in fundraising. And obviously that comes from Dexter Bailey and his team, comes from my office, but also involves many of the deans, vice presidents, and even faculty members who are involved in, and I shouldn't say even, but faculty members are involved in this as well. So that's incredibly important. You mentioned the rankings, which is great, the highest we've ever had. I always worry about these things. I've said many times, and I'm saying it publicly right now since we're being webcast. The rankings, I think, are important to applicants. They're important to their parents. I think they're important to current students, and I think they do give us somewhat of a picture that we're moving in the right direction. But they're complicated. They don't reflect everything that has to do with excellence and greatness. And I think everyone I think our team continues to push really hard to move us forward. And while we like seeing these things, and we certainly like the affirmation that we're moving in the right direction, they don't drive everything we do. We're driven really by internal measures for excellence, and we're going to continue to do that. We ranked among the world's top 100 universities in the Center for World University Rankings, 89th. Again, that's a move up for us, and that's something we're very happy about. We advertise a lot that we're among the top 100 universities in the world, so it's nice we actually have it in writing somewhere. It's very important, and we're pleased about that. I want to go on to some appointments, and I think the folks are here today. So incredibly important job for our university, works around information technology, and IT is really important. And I'm very pleased to announce that Cole Camplice was named Vice President for Information Technology and CIO on July 1. Cole, stand up so everybody can see you. Cole came to us from Penn State University, so from another great public university where he was responsible. He was a senior director for teaching and learning with technology at Penn State, but really has been innovative in a number of ways. And he's been at the cutting edge in online learning, has been involved in global learning as well, and certainly is very up on technology and social media. Had a number of initiatives at Penn State in that as well. And all these things are critical for us in the education space in the future. So we're really glad that Cole is joining us. Matt Whalen. So I mentioned Matt before. Matt was the interim vice president for strategic initiatives, and he became the vice president for strategic initiatives effective September 1. And Matt, please rise. Matt did a spectacular job managing enrollment at Stony Brook, so he was really the person responsible for creating our freshman class every year, managing the transfer students as well. That's become one of the most important jobs at the university, essentially. It involves knowledge of how to use IT, institutional research, all of those things. And Matt takes all of those skills to this new job as Vice President for Strategic Initiatives. And again, Matt, thank you for for your willingness to take that on. We're going to have a presentation on Startup New York as part of today's agenda, so I won't talk about that, but that's certainly been occupying a lot of our time. It's something very exciting. We had an issue around, we have a report on campus safety, which you can see an update. As you know, in the news, we had a very unfortunate situation of 2 armed robberies on the campus. This was very concerning, obviously, to all of us, prompted a number of increased safety measures that we took during that time. But we also focused on apprehending who was involved, and I'm very pleased to say, and Barbara Chernow and Bob Lenahan, our chief of police, really were up nights, not sleeping during this period of time, but pushing hard, and they were able to apprehend 3 alleged perpetrators, who are now in custody essentially for this, and there have been no further incidents, obviously, since that time. So we're very pleased that we were able to do this. It points out again how important it is for safety on the campus. It's a high priority for us. I had a chance to have dinner with a high representative for a country that sends a number of students to Stony Brook, and they said one of the things that was very attractive to parents in that country was Stony Brook's reputation for safety and security. So it's very important that we continue to maintain that, and we'll work very hard to do that. Yeah, they really want their children to go to a place that they can be safe, so it's incredibly
Did the
important.
3 have any affiliation, former students, ever students?
These are high school age
Oh, are they
students,
really?
unfortunately. Yeah, they're high school age individuals. So
That's unfortunate.
yeah, it is. So we're making progress in a number of important facilities, and the arena is on schedule to open in fall of 2014. That's going to be an amazing facility, and I really can't wait to see it open. We have new student recreation fields. So one of the issues, as you remember, in the past has been students really came justifiably in saying, we don't have enough fields to participate in our intramural sports and our club sports, and we worked very hard with the 3 Village the soccer group, and we reached I think a compromise that was great for both sides. I think both sides ended up very happy, but as a result of that, we now have new fields essentially that are available for our students, and those have opened, and again, they're very pleased about that. I want to go to athletics. We set a record on Saturday for the largest crowd ever at Ken LaValle Stadium. So 11,224 fans came. It was incredible.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And they won, which is even better. Diana knows. They won 21-13, which was great. So, but for those of you who were there, it was an amazing sight, essentially, to see the place completely filled. It really was mostly Stony Brook students and community members who were there, and very exciting, great atmosphere, lots of noise. The Wolfstock beforehand, people seemed to really enjoy the tailgating. People were getting there at 10 in the morning to start tailgating, so traditions are being done. I think people generally behave themselves pretty well too, which is important. But again, my congratulations to the team, and obviously it's a great mark for athletics is how this event has grown and really captured the attention both of the students and the community. Kevin mentioned the ribbon cutting for the new Marine Sciences Center. This is a $10 million, 15,000 square foot center. We had a chance to tour it. I thank all the members of the council who were able to come out there and see it. It's really state-of-the-art laboratory for marine sciences. It's unbelievable in terms of what they can do now with controlling the environment of water there. They can really reproduce the conditions of ocean water or fresh water from around the world. They can adjust it, so if someone's working with things in the Sargasso Sea, they can actually reproduce those conditions in the water in the tanks, so they can study the flora and fauna that are there. So it's very, very exciting from that point of view. Also has an incredible conference room. People were joking that they would like to move their offices there. It has an incredible view of the water, and it's going to be a great facility. And I think we have a number 6 ranked School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences in NRC rankings, National Research Council rankings. So they deserve a great facility, and again, thanks to the state, we have that. So we're very excited about that, and some donors have helped as well. I gave my State of the University address on Wednesday, September 25th. For those of you who have lots of spare time, there's a web link where you can see it. If you haven't, I actually watched some of it the other night to show my kids that I actually do have a job. So they know I do things. But I think that the fun thing was we welcome new faculty members there, and as you know, we've been on an incredible hiring effort, which I think has been very, very successful. So each side, what do we have going?
There are 113 new hires in the last few years on the West Campus.
113 new hires, net new hires on the West Campus, and
Similar numbers over the last 2 or 3 years.
similar
Wow.
numbers on the East Campus.
And
So
is
in
that-
excess of 200 net new really over the past.
Is that a direct result of the SUNY 2020?
Yes. Short answer, yes. SUNY 2020 plus the philanthropy that came from the Simon's gift, because SUNY 2020 helps us pay those salaries, but the startup packages for researchers, particularly on the biomedical side, are very high, and we could not cover all of that with SUNY 2020. So philanthropy really helps us make that cover. But so that's very exciting, and it was great to welcome that. I was able to fund through internal funds a couple of initiatives. One is to support programs in the humanities and arts at Stony Brook. One of the challenges that we face is that the federal government and things like the National Endowment for the Arts has slashed funding in those areas, so it's very hard for people to get support for their scholarship. So we're setting up a fund, and I'll work with Provost Asanas on to put an additional $1 million essentially in providing support for the humanities, arts, and those areas of the social sciences that have been potentially defunded as well. And then our EOP program. We've talked a lot before about our Educational Opportunity Program that's been extraordinarily successful in helping economically disadvantaged students graduate from Stony Brook, in many instances at higher graduation rates than our general population. So it's been an extraordinarily successful program, and I was pleased to be able to put $1 million in to help them expand the program and improve their services. We're excited about that. And then some additional funds that went to support the Turner Fellowship Program. So Stony Brook University has graduated more underrepresented minority doctorates than all the other SUNY campuses combined. So it's an incredible accomplishment, and again, we put some additional funds helping support that. We had the dedication of the faculty honor roll, and again, some of you were there, and I appreciate your attendance. This is designed really to honor those faculty at Stony Brook University who have achieved national and international distinction, so they've achieved national and international recognition from some of the most prestigious learned societies in the country. And again, we're very pleased about that. It was a very exciting day, and I think the people who are on that wall really enjoyed it. What was most striking for me, and Barbara Chernow and I have talked about this before, and I want to thank Barbara publicly for helping make that possible, and really taking my vision for this into reality, was every time you go down by the Melville Library, you see students stopping and looking, and they're looking at that wall and they're reading the faculty names, and hopefully it's inspirational for them. And really the purpose was to remind our students, visitors, as well as our current faculty, that we have people who are nationally and internationally recognized. These are people who have achieved the highest levels of success in the field, and it's worth being reminded sometimes that these people are on our campus, and we're excited about it. And finally, I just want to mention again, a number of you came to the opening of Fry Hall. This is took one of our oldest buildings, the old chemistry building, and turned it into a state-of-the-art classroom, essentially. And it has a number of lecture halls, but what's really exciting is it has some new teaching spaces as well, where you have tables where students can gather to discuss things with their TAs, but all of it's wired as well. So each one can have a monitor, so you can share the same kind of presentation, the same kind of material can be shared by everybody at the same time, yet they can work individually as well with a tutor. And I'm actually going to come watch one of those sessions. I'll invite you guys to do it if you want. I'm going to go see one of the classes, because I think it's really kind of how students are learning these days. It's part of the future of learning, and again, we're excited that we can be on the cutting edge of that too. And I thank Robert Fry and the Fry Family Foundation for all the support that they've given to Stony Brook. So I think I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
How long did the renovation take, Dan?
Barbara?
The renovations are 2.5 years,
2.5 years for final.
and we did them with the SUNY construction fund.
And it's the old chemistry building?
Yes, yeah, it's really transformed.
It was not a very nice building, yes, I remember. I got it.
But much nicer now.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Sam? You know, it's always impressive, you know, we come, then we're not together for 3 months, and then what goes on in that short time period that we're not together is always very impressive. You know, Sam, thank you and your team for everything you're doing, and as I said, it makes us all proud to be part of the council because of all the great things that are happening here. We don't really do any of the work, you guys do all the work, and we get to share some of the accolades, so it's nice. It's something I forgot to mention. As you know, Sam and I are part of the Governor's Regional Economic Development Council, and Jim Margo helps us out a lot with it. We made our recommendations for round 3 of funding for this year, which included a number of Stony Brook initiatives. And so we'll know in the beginning of December, if we win. And the governor has, what he started doing last year was touring the 10 different regions and some of the highlights, some of the projects that each region is highlighting. And so we're trying to nail down a date for the governor's tour for this year, or for this round. And what we're trying to do is include a Stony Brook component, which would be cool. It'll be about his 4th or 5th visit here, right? In his tenure, so 3rd? Yeah. We're hoping. So we'll keep you posted. When's so the next meeting is December? 7th? Yeah, we could know right about that time. Yeah. We could also be called up to Albany that day to go, find out if we won, so we'll let you know. But so that's it. Diane, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanna bring it local a little bit and thank the university for working so diligently with the town. Lancrosse has been awesome. Mike Aarons, thank you for supporting our Women's Expo. We did honor the university for Breast Cancer Month for all the fine work you do. But you've done an outstanding job, and I have to comment and say thank you, Elaine, because the community outreach and working with the community and with the town is really starting to show.
Great.
So you'll be on Channel 18 and on our website, but we thank you and for working on that difficult issue.
Thank you.
Is the difficult issue the off-campus housing
Yes,
issue we're talking
yes,
about?
and the supervisor really, I have to say, jumped all over it. I mean, I've never seen anybody work so fast, but we had zoning changes put in place, we had definitions that needed to be tweaked, put in the town code so that the code enforcement people and the people that are trying to really fix the issue could work it out. And very high fines for the landlords, because it is really a landlord problem. And I know that the university has issues with housing, because some people wanna live off campus. If they had 1,000 units here extra, they still wanna live off campus. So it's just inherent in college life. But some of the landlords were the ones that really created the issue by taking advantage and chopping up the homes into 20 rooms, which is really unsafe for the students as well as for the neighboring communities. But it's been going very well, and we're keeping our fingers crossed that it continues that way. But I think it's been a good relationship working on it together, so thank you very much. You are the most important asset to our town, so I think it's important that we do work together and keep highlighting that. Thank you.
And it's great that the town recognizes that too.
Absolutely.
But we also have to be a good neighbor, and I got the report from Elaine last time. Is there anybody alleging anything about the university that we haven't done yet, or basically have we been doing everything we said we were gonna do, or is there anything more that we,
No,
I think
it's good.
we've been listening and, certainly had our attention at the highest levels. And,
Proactive,
Vice
yes.
president of the university essentially engaged in working with the community on this issue and meeting with them very, very frequently to understand what the issues are and where we can help. And, yet also, of course, respecting our students as adults who have the right to live where they want to live and so on. So I think it's
working out?
yeah, I think so.
Good.
I think we're making progress.
It's
Great,
wonderful.
great.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much for that,
Sure.
because it's long overdue sometimes.
Anything else for Sam? All right, thank you very much, Sam. We're gonna go to our reports. We have a proposed change to the campus traffic and parking regulations, and Barbara is going to brief us on that.
Sure. I know you've all been waiting for this. Yeah, I think this is the 3rd time I've done this at Stony Brook, and I enjoyed so much, so we'll just jump right in.
No,
Despite the fact that we have added 5,000 spots in the last 13 years, believe it or not, and no one in this room, I know it, but some people still park illegally, blocking hydrants, blocking handicapped spaces, and today I'd like to discuss some of the changes I'd like to make to stop that. So in the packet we gave you, lots to read, but I'll just summarize it for you. There, on Lake Drive, we wanna lower the speed limit to 15 miles per hour. In areas where we have bike paths and walkways, we wanna make sure that cyclists know to stop for pedestrians. And we've added the new parking lot of the Hilton Garden Inn, so we've made some changes to the regulations. But the big thing that I want you to help us with is to now increase some of the fines. Here, I will step away. For grade 1 violations, that's where people are parking their hydrants or taking handicapped spots. We currently fine $100. I'd like to move it to $150. It seems like a lot of money, but it's really not. It aligns us with Port Jefferson, Suffolk Community College, and Farmingdale. And for grade 2 violations where cars are blocking dumpsters and loading zones or actually just parking on the sidewalk, I'd like to raise that $10. And you could see to the right, these are the numbers of infractions that have happened in 2010 and in 2011 and in 2012. And you can see in the areas of grade 1 and 2 violations, actually the number of fines are going up again. So I think that is what's compelling me, and I'd like to compel you to raise the fine to give the appropriate deterrent value. Ken?
Is it a deterrent? Do people know how expensive the fine is? If people don't know, like, do you post it?
Yes, actually, sometimes we give a warning ticket, but, and once again, it's not the people in this room, but some people who park illegally do it repeatedly. And when I've stopped faculty, staff, and students and asked, why do you do that? They say, well, it's cheaper to pay a few tickets than to actually pay for the garage. So I think that also supports the idea to raise the price.
How do
Right.
the students find out about the increase?
We put it on the web, and believe it or not, this first student
gets
gets a
out quick.
ticket, be very
Few tickets and everybody knows.
Barbara, where does the money go? What budget line does it go? How does it feed and help, enforce the law?
Very good question. We use that money to pave the parking lots that we have on campus and increase lighting and signage.
So maintenance of the parking areas and
Yes.
enhancement of them.
Right.
Are you looking for
Support.
action today?
Yes. Right, so could I have support? And
Yes, I think,
Yes.
Diana is making, we have let's get a motion on the table that
I
will
have a
take
question.
questions.
Well, I think
Yeah,
there's
she
a
has a
question here,
question.
yes.
I do have a question that, where are employees supposed to park if they come to the parking lot, they pay their, parking fee, and they drive around and they can't find a spot?
Well, I think there really are enough spots, because we have a few traffic enforcement folks that are monitoring that. The spot may not be as close to the building as one may like it, but I assure you there are enough spots on campus. And as we continue with our building program, we will continue to put parking on the periphery of the campus. Because the whole point of the facilities master plan is to put the pedestrian first and put cars on the perimeter of the campus.
Makes sense.
Yes,
I move that we,
you do each time, and I love you for it.
thank you, that's perfect, you're right, I think it has to be.
Seconded by Frank, any questions, comments on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you, Barbara.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
and if I could just add to what the president said earlier, we just issued our annual safety report, and reported crimes are 40% lower this year than last, and in the last 5 years, we've gone down 67%.
Wow. Can I ask a pedestrian traffic kind of related questions? Do you have, I mean, New York City has this new city bike thing, is there something like that? I
Yes,
remember you
this-
guys talking about that once before.
Yes, as a
So I
matter
know
of
that
fact,
that's been,
we call it
promoted.
Wolfie Ride, and we had it before Mayor Bloomberg brought it to New York City.
that's, yeah.
So I'm not saying he copied, but yes.
But yeah, he did, I know, but I mean, how's that working now that you're,
Beautiful.
so you do get a lot of participation, cause
Yep.
I think that's great to keep it.
Students just swipe
to
their ID card in there, and we have record number of students using it, and we're about to bring out 3 more stations.
That's great, I just wanted to remind people of that.
Kevin, just on a process question, this was very reasonable, glad to support it. Just wondered, we got this last week, was there any publicity around campus that, this was being considered?
Very good question. I'm sorry, I should have said that. We have met with focus groups, police, student groups, the traffic appeals board, faculty and staff to come up with these recommendations.
So it was known that this was.
Yes, yes. And we have a traffic appeals meeting every 2 weeks, so campus is always invited.
And
Thank you.
Barbara, excuse me, I meant to ask you, but you said you abandoned the lot or you've relinquished the authority to monitor the lot at the Hilton Hotel?
No, we added.
You added it to this,
Right,
okay,
right.
all right. Before that, it belonged just to the.
Before there wasn't the parking lot, before the Hilton opened, we didn't
So
have
you're
that.
just adding it on as an
Exactly.
addition, okay.
That can be used by someone who's visiting the campus?
No, that could be used by someone
So the
visiting the hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to
Is
regulate.
that where you parked today?
I stayed overnight.
How is the compliance, I mean, how many, what percentage of tickets do you actually collect, the money?
All.
Really? That's very good. Okay.
Thank you.
Wish we could do that to town.
No scoff
With fines,
laws.
right? No
Right, no.
scoff laws.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, next we're gonna get a update on the Middle States Commission study process from Dr. Charles Robbins.
I wanted to just start by thanking you all for this opportunity, and I've spoken to you earlier about it, so I just want to bring you up to date on where we are at this point. And we're getting really close at this point. We are having our preliminary visit November 13th and 14th. So the chair of our evaluation committee, Dr. Kerwin, who's the chancellor of the University of Maryland system, will be here November 13th and 14th, and at that time, we need to present him with a draft self-study. So we're really under the gun at this point, literally, to get this done, and have been working really hard to do that, and I'm gonna explain some of the things that we have been doing. The full visit happens next spring, so we will have 12 site visitors here, 12 evaluators coming. President Stanley had raised some concerns that many of us shared about some of the initial team, that the representation of the initial team, and we were just informed last week that in fact the questions we've raised have been addressed. So this team will include a physician, and this team will also include someone with a background in engineering. So we feel that it's much more appropriate in terms of the kind of institution that we have. In addition to the 12 evaluators from Middle States, there'll be the associate provost from SUNY with us, as well as the vice president from Middle States. And they will be here from Sunday afternoon, March 30th, through Wednesday afternoon, April 2nd. I'm throwing the party on April 3rd. But it's likely that it's during that period that they will want to meet with either you as a group or individuals, and certainly I believe that Mr. Law will be part of their schedule when they're here that period. But it's really important, as I've mentioned before, for you to understand what the process is and why this is so important for us going forward. So what we have to do is to show that we meet or hopefully surpass the 14 characteristics of excellence that are part of the Middle States process. And as I've explained before, Middle States evaluates all post-secondary schools in this region. The country is divided up regionally into the different accreditation bodies. Of the 14 standards, the ones that seem to give universities the most difficulty are Standard 2, which has to do with planning and resource allocation, and then the two big ones, which are institutional assessment and student learning assessment and outcome. And I think it's important to understand that more than 70% of the universities that are now go through reaccreditation have some follow-up action. And that's a real shift in the way they're doing business. So the bar has been raised, and it's really incumbent on us to meet that bar and move forward. There was an article in just this past week's Chronicle about a liberal arts college that Middle States put on warning because they felt that there was no connection between the planning and resource allocation and student learning. And so it just, again, is an example of what we need to really be paying attention to. So the process has been going on for well over 2 years at this point. We did a lot to disseminate information to the campus community as widely as we possibly can. We had did over 90 presentations to different groups and continue to do that moving along. We divided the 14 standards of excellence into 6 working groups, and many of the people in the room participated with us. That included over 85 faculty, staff, and students, both undergraduate and graduate students involved in that. And they met regularly and came up with draft documents, and I'm going to speak about those in just a minute. We've also, though, been concurrently having a logistics committee that meets regularly to really talk about how we're going to handle the site visit and make sure that everything's in place that needs to be to most appropriately deal with that, as well as a communications committee, and Elaine and her staff have been really helpful to us in doing that, to make sure that everyone in the campus community is aware of the fact that Middle States is coming, that Middle States will be here, and how important that really is. So since June, we have been working on putting together this draft self-study. And what we've tried to do is to preserve the essence of all the reports that the working groups have worked on and produced. But we also have to make sure that everything in it is in fact accurate, everything in it is appropriate for public consumption, and most important, that the fundamental elements, which are the criteria by which Middle States will judge us, are covered in all of the standards, and that each and every, that we're able to respond to each and every one of the fundamental standards. So we have been really working to put together responses to all 14 standards. And where we are now is that we really have 14 separate chapters to address each of the standards. And we'll be meeting with President Stanley actually later this week to share with him some of the more detail about this process, as well as to go over the draft and present him with our initial draft. Following that and getting his feedback, we'll be meeting with Provost Asanis and Senior Vice Presidents Chernow and Kashansky to seek their input and consultation. We will then integrate it into one document to really tell the Stony Brook story, to really have the narrative of why this is the special place that it is, and how to weave that through. And the idea then will be to post it online and make sure that we get input from the entire community. So we already have an email set up that people can ask us questions and give us input. But we will have the draft self-study online available to the community, so that faculty, staff, undergraduates, graduate students, and all those concerned can have a chance to have some inputs, because we really want everyone's buy-in. We really need this to be a campus-wide effort, because it really is, at the end of the day, something critical for the entire campus. And then, as I said, we will submit it to Middle States in February, and then they will be here on March 30th to commence their visit, and then the actual decision, we will get a sense from the site team of what they see and how comfortable they are with the work we're doing, and the actual decision will be voted by the Commission on Higher Education at their June meeting. And then we'll know the definite answer at that point. Just as an example of the kinds of things, one of the chapters is general education, and we are in the process of changing our general education model, and it doesn't go into effect until fall of 2014. So we are prepared to present them with what that model is and how we arrived at that. But I'm sure they're gonna ask at least for a progress report on that, so that because we don't have a track record on it yet. So they're gonna wanna see how that pans out and rolls out once we put it in place. And if that's the only recommendation that they ask for, then we'll be very, very happy. Questions, comments?
So just to add again, and to thank Charlie and all the members who've been working so hard on this, and people in the senior leadership team as well. It's a very important effort. It is an opportunity for us to find ways to improve. These kinds of accreditation and self-studies have actual laudable goals to make sure that we're trying to adhere to the highest standards. Having said that, there's some controversy with this as well. So again, people talk about the example of Princeton, which received, what's the official word?
They were cited because there was a concern that their senior honors thesis was not rigorous enough.
Yeah, so that's Princeton, so an outstanding university, which I think most people would agree is probably doing a very good job of educating people. And yet they did not have what their site visitors considered to be adequate rigor, they felt, in a capstone project or some way to assess learning, essentially, of the people who were graduating. So it's very challenging.
They were actually given a warning?
Yeah.
They weren't placed on warning, but they came very close to
Yeah,
that.
and so I think there's controversy in education. There's controversy about how one comes up with kind of standards to assess what's been accomplished in the 4 or 5 or 6 years, whatever it is, at Stony Brook, what has actually been learned. That's hard, because, and it can vary from institution to institution. You could have institutions that take students that may be challenged in a number of areas and move them up, and yet that level may be much lower, honestly, than the input coming into a place like Harvard or Princeton. So it's hard to figure out how to do that and do that well across multiple institutions with different missions, and I think
And once
that's
placed
part of
on
the
one,
challenge.
it's difficult to get rid of that one.
Exactly. So I think, so again, we take this very seriously, and I think we see it as an opportunity to find ways to improve, and that's how you have to look at it, I think.
And so what are the options come June? They issue a full accreditation, and then what are the other possibilities?
So we can get the full 10-year accreditation with no follow-up action. We can get the 10-year with minimal follow-ups. As the example I cited, we have to report to them on the progress of our general education. Or we can be placed on warning, which I really do not believe will happen, where we have 2 years to address whatever they cite as being a significant problem.
Right, and if, once we get accredited, we don't have to go through this process again for 10 more years?
Correct.
That'd be nice.
To what degree, if any, does the athletic program fit into a study like this?
They will be, they're very much a part of it. It really covers every aspect of everything that we do. So from the East Campus to this campus to what goes on at SUNY Korea, including athletics, every aspect that's under the umbrella of Stony Brook, we need to involve in how we respond to these 14 standards.
The one question I have is in the area of compliance as it relates to your athletic activities throughout, because more and more that becomes so meaningful in situations we set up, and the student participation in that is so important, so they know how to cooperate with what the leadership is doing.
Right, so we utilize the NCAA compliance information, as well as the other external accreditations that various schools and colleges get to input this material for Middle States, and then Middle States will evaluate separate from the external compliance how they feel we're doing on all the standards. But it's very much a part of the work that we're doing.
Thank you.
Just a question of technicalities, this includes the entire campus, but each campus, for instance, the medical department has its own accreditation, dental, what about VA? How does that work in? Is that part of our campus as well?
Well, the New York State Veterans Home is
Yes.
a part of our campus. So they are regulated by the Department of Health, and that's part of what we look at. The Middle States position is that they recognize that many of our, and actually the majority of our schools and programs have external accreditation. And so we certainly put that as part of what we're doing, but they don't take the fact that the medical school is accredited just and say, well, they're accredited by the appropriate body, so we don't have to look at that. They still want to have information about all of the programs on campus and off campus that we're responsible for.
And I guess that's important because it integrates with the student community as well.
Absolutely.
Right.
Charlie, I might have missed this, the last review 10 years ago, we got the accreditation with no further action.
There were some concerns 10 years ago about our focus on what was perceived to be our focus on research and graduate education at the expense of undergraduate education. And part of the response to that had to do, and Peter was very involved with this and others, part of the response to that had to do with the creation of the undergraduate colleges and all the work that we've done around the undergraduate experience. So in fact, it really has helped us to really push that agenda, and really our undergraduate experience now, I think, is incredibly different than it was when they came 10 years ago. But part of what we need to do in telling the story is to show how we use that opportunity and really have changed the work at all levels of the institution.
So since it's not until end of March, April, that they'll be here, have you guys identified some things that need some
On the site, is it they?
fixing up or addressing between now and then, and are people working on those?
People are working feverishly on those. Yeah, and they're not issues that are unique to Stony Brook. I mean, the issues of both institutional assessment and learning outcome assessment, again, as the president was saying, these are higher education issues across the board. And under the leadership of Provost Asanas, we were able to set up an assessment task force that has really moved us very quickly to a much better place. Are we where we need to be? Not quite, but we're moving there pretty quickly. So we will have this draft self-study for the chairman of the search, Dr. Kerwin, when he comes in November, but we still have the period between November and February when we hand in the final document to improve it and to show what we've been able to accomplish then, as well as to incorporate the feedback that we get from the entire campus community.
Right. Well, in the big scheme of things, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, something like this review is really what matters. Whereas, with no disrespect to media publications, there's not a whole lot of science behind like a U.S. News and World Report ranking, but there is every bit of facts and science, that goes into this type of review, and being ranked by our peers and getting accredited by our peers is, really what's important. Correct?
Yes, I would say that two things. So one is that there are elements of U.S. News that reflect values that we have. So in terms of, as one looks at student-faculty ratio and class sizes, there's things that probably have a correlate with success. So there are things in that listing, I think, that are things we're trying to achieve. This is less kind of about a ranking, but kind of more about a series of standards that they're trying to see whether we meet or not. So I think that, at the end of the day, it's incredibly important. It's important just from a functional point of view, because if you're not accredited, you can't get federal dollars. So that a school that's not accredited cannot receive, so our students would not be able to receive their Pell Grants. We couldn't receive funding for scholarships and so on. So from a fundamental point of view, it's very important. But I think, as Charlie and I have said, that it's very comprehensive. It's incredibly important, I think, for us to use it, as I said before, as a chance to evaluate where we're strong and not strong, but maybe less of kind of a rankings thing, but more about the importance of just, as you say, being recognized for our peers for practices that meet standards, essentially.
Right.
I think they're less, I guess what I was trying to say is that they're maybe less interested in, are you the best at something, but more interested, are you meeting particular standards that have to be met? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, good luck with it, Charlie, and I'm sure we'll get reports in December and February before they come and pay their visits here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to have a presentation on the Startup in New York initiative that Sam referenced before, an initiative by Governor Cuomo, and Matt Whalen and Elaine Carson are going to handle that presentation.
And Elaine will start.
Good morning and thank you. I'm gonna give you an overview of the statute this morning, and then Matt's gonna pick up on what Stony Brook has been doing since the statute was enacted. So the legislation was passed at the end of the session in June, and its purpose really is fourfold. One, to encourage startups in the state of New York, to keep incubated companies in New York. Sometimes companies that were incubated here in New York, once they were ready to leave the incubator, they moved to a more favorable tax climate in another state. And it's to, the third goal is to incentivize existing companies in New York to expand and create new jobs. And then lastly, to recruit out-of-state corporations to relocate in New York State. Our goal at Stony Brook University is all of that. Plus, we want the businesses who come on site to partner with our researchers and to provide opportunities for our students. just to give you a statewide view, this was a statute that was really designed to boost the economy of upstate New York. So it looks a little bit like a funnel. It gets much more restrictive the more downstate you go. So it's more generous north of Westchester County. And there, a SUNY campus businesses can be developed right on the SUNY campus, or 200,000 square feet within a mile of the campus. We don't have that 2,000 square feet within a mile of the campus in Nassau and Suffolk. And in Nassau and Suffolk, there are restrictions on the types of business. We're limited to startups and high-tech businesses. In upstate New York, there are no restrictions on the type of businesses. It's even more limited in the city of New York. I won't get into the details.
I mean, there are limits on the kinds of businesses, right? I mean, the
Yes.
statute puts a number of limits. You can't, have a stop and shop
Yes.
As part of the thing. So
There's
there are
about 10
limitations, yeah.
types of businesses that are prohibited all
Right.
across the state,
Yeah.
and I'll get to those. So for Stony Brook, the eligible land and space is any vacant land or vacant space in buildings on any of our campuses, and that includes the R&D Park, the main campus, and our Southampton campus. The only prohibition regarding space is that we can't create vacant space by relocating or eliminating academic or administrative programs that serve our students. Incubators that are affiliated with any SUNY campus are also eligible. So that means we have about 46 actually vacant acres out at Calverton. And the spaces in Leidy, Seawood, and our Advanced Energy Center are also eligible. And importantly, companies that graduate from our incubators are eligible for the tax-free benefits under the statute, even if they don't create new jobs. So the first step is that Stony Brook has to develop a plan. And in that plan, we have to identify the land and space that we want to declare eligible for the tax-free benefits. We have to describe the types of businesses that we're going to target and the process we're going to use for selecting those businesses. We have to demonstrate that the businesses we're going to attract are aligned with our academic mission. And then we have to describe the positive community and economic benefits of those businesses. Once we have a plan, we have to share it with the Empire State Development Corporation. But before we do that, we have to share it internally within the campus community to the faculty senate, campus union leaders, and student government. In the external community, we have to share it with the municipality in which the proposed area is located, and local and economic development entities. Once those 30 days have expired and we've shared the plan with the internal and external communities, we share it with ESDC, who in consultation with the Chancellor of SUNY will approve or disapprove the plan. The legislation encourages public-private partnerships in ways that we haven't enjoyed before. So for the first time, legislation is not required if we want to enter into a lease arrangement with a private developer. The only exception is if the lease is greater than 40 years of duration, or if it involves more than 1 million square feet, you have to get approval from the Startup New York Approval Board. And that's a board that will be appointed by the 3-member board, an appointment from the governor, the Senate Majority Leader, and the Assembly Speaker. And to get that approval, you have to approach the board, and they have 30 days to reject your request. Otherwise, the lease is approved. So it works sort of in reverse. If they don't act, it's automatically approved.
That's a good thing.
That's why-
It's a good
zoning board and
Main
planning
Square.
board should require that down here.
Yeah, it may catch on,
Agree.
actually. But anyway, private developers would be subject to the state's prevailing wage and MWBE requirements. So once we have our plan and our plan is approved, then businesses are free to apply to the university to participate in the tax-free program. And the businesses in their applications must show that they're aligned with or further the academic mission of Stony Brook. And one way a university could do that is to show that they are going to have co-ops and internship programs that our students could participate in. That would be favorably looked upon, I've been told. Importantly, the businesses must demonstrate and promise to create net new jobs. They have to demonstrate in their application that they will have a positive community and economic benefit to the region. And companies can come from out of state to relocate in New York State. And as I said earlier, existing New York companies can move from a non-tax-free area to a tax-free area as long as they're creating net new jobs. As I said earlier, on Long Island, Westchester, and New York City, businesses must be a startup or a high-tech company. This is the definition of high-tech that is in the statute. The draft regulations refer to the National Bureau of Labor Statistics for the definition of high-tech. As Sam mentioned, there are a number of businesses that are expressly excluded from participating in the Startup New York. They're listed on this slide. It's mostly service industries, retail, restaurants, real estate brokers, accounting firms, etc. So what do we mean by tax-free? It's 100% tax-free, no income tax for most employees, no sales tax, property tax, or business tax while they're partnering with the university and on qualified land. I say most employees will pay no income taxes because high wage earners in the last 5 years of the 10-year period have to pay income taxes on wages over $200,000 for individuals, $250,000 for head of household, and $300,000 for those filing jointly. There is a
Question.
limit. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's state taxes only.
That is state taxes only, correct, Fred. Thank you for clarifying. There is a limit on the number of employees who can enjoy the income tax, the state income tax benefit, and it is limited by 10,000 employees statewide each year of the 7 years of the program, so that there's an overall limit of about 70,000 individuals who can enjoy the income tax-free benefit. As I said, businesses will apply directly to the university. If we accept the business, the ESDC has 60 days to review that application. And again, if they don't act within the 60 days, the business is automatically approved. Businesses have until December 31st of 2020 to apply. That's the end of the statute unless ESDC and the state legislature extend the program. So as I said, the deadline is December 31st, 2020, but the tax benefits last for 10 years. So if you apply on December 30th, 2020 and you're approved, your tax benefits will go on for the next 10 years. And there is that limitation of 70,000 employees statewide for the 7-year life of the program.
See, I don't understand. So you say a 7-year life of the program, but tax benefits last 10 years? So
Yeah, so you have 7 years to apply for the program.
Okay.
But the tax benefits would last for 10 years from
Okay.
whenever you apply.
Okay.
Alright, is that clear?
Okay,
And it's a little complicated.
yeah. So those 70,000 will be continuing past, essentially.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
One thing that we are making clear to the community when we talk about this program, and I think it makes a big difference, is that the statute specifically provides that tax-free business applicants have to demonstrate that they're not competing with an existing business in the community outside the tax-free area.
That's right.
We also like to point out that jobs created through Startup New York will create economic activity in the community. So the employees will take their tax-free paychecks and they'll buy homes in the community, they'll shop in the community, they'll enjoy restaurants and entertainment in the community. So there is an economic benefit to the local community. There is several oversight and accountability provisions built into the statute to protect against fraud, to make sure that businesses create the jobs that they're promising to create. There are measures to prevent self-dealing and conflicts of interest. And there are clawback provisions if you don't create the number of jobs that you indicated. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the statute?
Elaine, I have two. The first one I think is pretty easy. This only applies to SUNY institutions, not private institutions.
So private institutions can participate, but on a very limited basis. I believe in Nassau and Suffolk counties, private institutions can compete for about 50,000 square feet.
I was gonna say 75.
Yeah, I think it's 25,
I thought it was
150,000, that's right, it's 75,000 square feet, and then you can apply for another 75,000 square feet.
Okay, on one that might be more convoluted, it seems to me that, if I understood this correctly, SUNY can partner with two different types of private institutions. For example, private entities. A business that would be interested would come to a SUNY institution and be accepted or not by that institution. But SUNY also could go, and that business could go to land owned by a private developer, and SUNY would have to sign, or the business would have to sign, a lease with that private developer for that location. And if the lease is fewer than 40 years, or under 1 million square feet, then that lease, it would be up to SUNY to qualify the business to go to this.
So let me just
I
clarify.
told you it was convoluted.
Yeah, so let me just clarify.
You did very well getting us all confused.
So, in downstate New York, on Long Island in particular, you have to enjoy tax-free benefits, you have to be on a SUNY campus.
Okay.
Or our incubator land out in Calverton.
Got that.
Okay, but a private developer can come on that land and develop a building that would then be occupied by the business and enjoy the tax-free benefits.
But you can't create a campus on a private developer's land, or
Right, no.
okay, that's the question. Okay.
Correct.
Elaine, two questions too. When is the plan due?
So I don't think it's due, but we are working on it. Matt will fill you in on that. So I don't think there's an actual due date, although we're being very encouraged to submit one soon.
Right, I mean, we're gonna get this done before the end of the year.
So, I mean, I think the problem is that the regulations haven't been completely defined.
Right.
So
Right.
it's hard to put the plan together without knowing exactly what the regulations will be. So one of the things that you knew much better than I do, and many of the people in this room know, when a law is passed, it actually, people then spend a lot of time, actually, the agencies spend a lot of time actually figuring out exactly how that's going to be implemented and the regulations aside. So that's going on right now.
By SUNY?
And SUNY is engaged in that
Or
process,
is it
absolutely.
Who's drafting the
Both
regulations?
both are working together. So Jim Malatros, who played a critical role when he was in the governor's office of helping do this, is now, as you know, COO of SUNY. And so he's been working with this, as has Tim Colleen for the Research Foundation has been working as well. So certainly people who understand the campuses are engaged in this process, but we don't have a set of regs yet unless things have changed. I think we have a draft set of regulations have come, but we don't have a full set of regulations yet. But we started on this the minute this bill was passed. Is Matt? I don't want to spoil on Matt's comments, but we assembled a task force essentially to begin absolutely putting our plan together. So we have already put a draft plan together for what we want to do. We just want to make sure now that it coincides with whatever the regulations are. I had tasked my team with being among the first university centers to submit a plan. That was our goal, and we'll continue to try and do that. In the meantime, as Matt will tell you, we're having discussions already with private developers about the possibility of coming in and doing something on the campus. And I think the challenge for us is it takes a long time, it takes a longer time, and Barbara would agree with me on this, to build a building through the state funding capabilities.
Absolutely.
They build very good buildings, but it takes a while to build those buildings. And so in this instance, where there is some sense of time pressure, the possibility of partnering with a private developer who's willing to put up some or all of the capital to build such a building, I think is exciting for us. And so that's certainly one direction we're looking at as we look at how to proceed here. But so I hope I didn't cover everything.
So I'm done. Any
Matt.
questions?
but you can accelerate as needed.
So as President Stanley said, in July, he put together an executive group of himself, Dr. Kashansky, Dennis Sasanis, the provost, Lyle Gomes, Ben Chow, so that we could begin to work on this. And each of those representatives had representatives from their
And
team.
Yaakov Shamash,
Yeah,
Vice
Yaakov,
President for
excuse me,
Economic Development.
on that group as well. And we have representatives from each of those people who've come together as a working group and put together actually a draft application that we have about, I would say, 85% completed for Stony Brook. We are waiting for the final regulations to make sure that what we've put together mesh with the final regulations. We have seen a draft copy, and we're going to try and make sure we get as soon as we get the final copy, this will go to President Stanley, and then once approved, out to the various constituencies on campus, faculty, senate, undergraduate student government, GSO, and the community as required by the legislation, and because it just makes sense. In the meantime, the working group has done a couple of site visits. We've been to Centennial Campus on North Carolina State to look at their R&D and Economic Development Park. They have been around for about the last 20-some years and have done a phenomenal job in sort of building this up. So we've spoken to the principals there. We've talked about how both to set up the infrastructure to create really an ecosystem of public-private partnerships. This is not just a real estate deal, and it's important that certainly downstate, as we engage high-tech R&D and high-tech businesses, that we create new jobs, but we also create new knowledge, new investments, new energies that we can bring into the economy. So that's been going on. We have also identified on our own campus available space. We came out of a meeting as early as this morning to identify existing space and the condition of that space for both Stony Brook, East and West Campus, for Calverton, for the incubator at Calverton, and for Southampton, so that we've identified some available square footage. Again, minimal based on the fact that Stony Brook is thankfully doing very well, and we're at capacity in many of our buildings, but we have identified some existing space that we can use.
So the idea here being that one can envision a scenario where a company might be interested in moving. We wouldn't have a building available yet, but they want to come to Stony Brook. Do we have a small amount of space we could use to accommodate someone in an earlier stage before we've actually built a building? So that's what we've been looking for. And as Matt said, fortunately, / unfortunately, depending on your point of view, most of our buildings really are fully occupied, and you saw the prohibition about moving academic programs to create space, so we can't do that. There are campuses that have buildings essentially that they're not utilizing that will have an advantage in this, where they really could move someone in because they happen to have really empty space on their campus that they're not utilizing. We're really not in that situation so much, although we have been looking to see where there may be some opportunities.
And also the use of our land. So if somebody wanted to come and build something.
Oh, absolutely. That I think is
a corporate headquarters, Yeah.
So we've identified 246 acres at R&D, 46 available acres at Calverton. There would need to be appropriate setbacks, obviously, and working through all those covenants. But we've identified that space and actually had initial discussions with developers on the possibility of how we might do public-private partnerships to do a design build quickly, build what's called a sophisticated shell that could be outfit for either dry lab, wet lab, or industrial office space. So I believe we have another meeting coming up in another week or so with that.
Yeah, so all preliminary at this point in time, but.
Correct.
Yeah.
Great.
So at this point, we're waiting for the final regulations to come out so we can finish our plan. Once the plan is reviewed internally, we will submit it to ESBC for approval, and then we will go out and begin to do actual recruitment of companies to campus that mesh with our academic and research mission. So the groups are working fairly quickly to stay ahead of this.
Do you want to talk, I'm sorry to interrupt, Matt, do you want to talk a little bit about what's happening centrally? Because the state is actually engaged in promoting this as well. Do you want to talk briefly about that?
So this morning, we received a request late last week from SUNY to put together a list of what they're calling some marquee space on campus, available space, available buildings that they can put into a sort of a general marketing piece to go out and talk to
So the
companies.
governor has appointed, what's the name of the person, do you remember? The woman who's been appointed by the governor, do we know? So
I don't off
for
the
those
top of my
watching online can look it up
Startup.
for us and text me. So yeah, has appointed a coordinator for Startup New York basically, who has a strong background in commercial real estate, I think, primarily. And so she's there to help the campuses market their space and help them reach out essentially to companies that may be engaged. So that's going to be an important component as well in this.
And so we've actually sent, at another recent request from SUNY, we've sent up some requests for funding that falls outside critical maintenance, outside of facilities master plan funding, that would allow us to sort of boost our Startup New York efforts. And working with Barbara and Elaine and some others on campus, we've sent up a request to allow us to put some infrastructure on the R&D campus across the street in terms of sewage, electrical feeders, and water treatment, so that we have an ask in. We were asked to put that together so that we can sort of jumpstart the project. So there's a lot of wheels turning both on campus in Albany, and certainly with the regulations once they come out, we'll be better able to move forward pretty quickly.
Great. Thanks, Matt. I don't know if it's a question for Elaine or you. It doesn't sound like the legislation required an approval from the council, but given the minor blip we had with the Southampton campus a few years ago, does the council have to chime in on it at all from whatever the council obligations are?
You have to explore that plan.
Yeah, I think as part of our plan, we would share our plan with the council for sure.
So maybe at the December meeting, we could give the plan our blessing as well to the extent, if you need it.
Yep.
If we don't need it, then.
I think we probably circulate before we
Right.
actually submit it at the SDC.
Right.
We'll certainly want your comments. Again, this is, I think what they're asking for is comments, so it's not a formal approval process, and that holds for the other constituents that were mentioned. They want advice and comments, but it's not a formal approval.
But as
process.
Kevin said, a blessing certainly wouldn't help.
We would love it. We would love it.
Okay, yeah, so circulate that, yeah,
Is there-
that's great, and I did, I went to the governor's office 2 weeks ago, I don't know if you ever did it, I had to do a video, and I had of course I plugged Stony Brook, Start of New York video.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
They didn't
I'm
like-
probably on the cutting room floor, but, nevertheless, I did that.
But you did.
Frank, you have a question?
I wanted to ask you, on the Southampton campus, is there any buildings that could be utilized for this, or is that not?
Yes,
Yes.
no, so we are trying to identify available space on the Southampton campus as
Okay.
well.
Great. Jean?
You had responded too that you already have some applicants or people interested in this. Do they approach you? How are you marketing this in the outside world to
So
captivate?
we've had some soft inquiries, I would call them at this
Soft.
point, and there's one or two that we know of, and they're coming in through various channels. So as we get this developed, this plan developed, there's actually an application in this.
Okay.
And we will develop a tracking system for requests in, applications out, so that they can, the company actually would have to complete this application and make promises of what their new net jobs might be. They need to show some past experience with business plans and whatnot. So all of that will be in here. We're not at that stage of actually formally collecting applicants at this minute.
But do you plan to do that? Do you plan to market this out?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So that was, that is an important
We do,
endeavor.
and I think we're certainly, informally are talking to people
Yeah.
about this. So anytime that we meet people in the business community, developers, this is high on our agenda to inform them. It's harder to do formal marketing when the regulations aren't
Not right,
aren't
yes,
done yet.
but
And so
that's
we do
Gotta be
wanna
impossible.
I mean, I think,
you're developing
so
a product
it's
that
hard
you
to
don't
put
have.
something more formally out in
Yes.
terms of advertisements and so on. And again, the state of New York is going to be doing something on their own centrally to do this. So again, we don't wanna be in their way or
Crashing it.
ahead of them in an area that could create
But
problems.
that's the
So
point.
we just wanna make sure we're coordinated. We certainly have, we believe that for a variety of reasons, which I don't need to tell you, that this is an extraordinarily desirable place to locate your business. Because
Sam-
because the highly educated workforce on Long Island, B, because of course the proximity to the university and all the intellectual capital essentially that's here would make this a great place to be located. And then of course, proximity to New York City. Again, if you look, New York City is really fairly excluded from this. So if you wanna have some of the benefits of the city, but of course you can't be because of the restrictions of the program, we think it's a great opportunity for Stony Brook. So we're really excited. But again, I think what you'll see is there'll probably be general marketing of the plan across the country, but then we'll do our own individual marketing that points out how Stony Brook stands out among
Terrific.
a great group of other cities.
On
So they
that-
don't
on
have
that
to,
point, go ahead,
I'm
Jane.
sorry,
You go
they
ahead.
don't have to be then from New York or from Long Island.
The international companies would be
International,
welcome.
wow.
So,
Attracting
so it
talent.
has to be
That's
net new
important.
jobs is the
Yeah.
key. And anybody moving from out of state, whether they're coming from Hong Kong or Nebraska, would count as a net new job.
That would be the optimal, the
Yeah,
attraction.
that's,
Yeah.
that's what I
Absolutely, and
thought.
I think
I
that's
would
where
find-
we think a lot of our marketing could go.
On that subject, is there something wrong with the assumption that incubators that already exist, companies that are incubating here, Seawit, Advanced Energy, Calverton, would be naturals if they were moving into the mezzanine stage?
Absolutely, I think that would be
Okay.
fantastic,
I thought they
no
might have been a
question.
prohibition against that.
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, they're actually qualified by being in the incubators already.
Len, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna ask about the foreign countries or something like that.
Got it,
Yeah.
yeah. The whole, what the governor was trying to do was really level the playing field for New York. We have governors in other states who are
Yeah.
approaching companies, in our, state,
With a lot of
basically
publicity.
offering free land, no income taxes, and it's tough to compete with that. And so while he can't do it for private properties and stuff, they do control SUNY, essentially, and,
Great.
they came up with this program to at least to have something to combat a governor,
Rein in.
a Perry from Texas coming in and trying to steal one of our companies by offering them free land and no taxes. And so, that's the guys behind it, and now,
Yeah.
it's trying to, be, regulations are being promulgated and then plans to be prepared and then implemented. So it is pretty exciting, and I think it sounds like Stony Brook is as prepared and,
Ready
has
to
as
go.
many assets to offer than any other, university. Are the community colleges, eligible for this? They are?
They are.
And so we also then have, so we have two community colleges, and we have SUNY Westbury and SUNY Farmingdale. Is there any chance, because the governor loves collaborations, is there any opportunity to do some type of collaborative thing, or have we not looked at that yet?
We haven't yet. There's certainly, I think, opportunity for that.
Yeah, it's just, I know it's big with them, and they may come out in the regulations as they're promulgated, so keep that in mind too.
My guess is that if this goes as well as we would hope, that there will certainly be companies that are looking at one partner, where they may not be such a fit for one of the Long Island campuses, it might be a better fit for others, and I think the free exchange of that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
So I can envision companies that, I'd love to be in the position where companies are coming and we may say, we like your company, but in fact, it's purely manufacturing, for example, high-tech manufacturing. We see less opportunity in this area than might make a lot of sense based on what Suffolk is doing in terms of their training. That might be a great location for you to go. So hopefully that kind of exchange of information will happen. Because it's geographically limited in terms of space, it may be harder to see other obvious areas.
And we speak to that in our plan, that we will also funnel where appropriate, things.
And we would hope our sister institutions do the
Well,
same.
that's
Is
marvelous.
it fair to ask at this point, are there 2 or 3 company ideas that you guys are all thinking about that would
We're,
fit best?
you know, I don't wanna say it because obviously it's, you know, it's early in phase, but I mean, I think we really, as Matt said, I mean, we're very interested in companies that, for example, are still doing R&D, that would love to have their R&D, location, in, you know, an area that's kind of vibrant intellectually. So I think that's something that really appeals to us, is companies that would like to locate an R&D facility, on our campus. That to us is exciting. Having said that though, we do take seriously the internship opportunities and experiential learning opportunities. So a high-tech company that might be more involved in manufacturing, yet still had some components of research, but also offers great opportunities for our students is something we'd look at as well. So we're pretty open at this point in time, but our plan kind of details what details of this.
This is a fantastic opportunity, fantastic, yeah.
Following on that, so you mentioned that there are gonna be hopefully internship opportunities for students, but are there gonna be sort of incentives for these businesses to offer internships or?
Part of the application talks about how they are going to integrate their business with our students and
Great.
faculty and researchers. So we actually explicitly mention in here internships, experiential learning, some of the programs in the graduate school and at the undergraduate area, so that we can not only connect the students, but let the companies know how tied up we are in making sure our undergraduates and graduates get experiential education. It's a strong part of our plan.
Fantastic.
It's exciting, so, stay tuned and, you guys will keep us posted.
Yeah.
Good luck with it, thanks.
Good luck to Barbara.
Alright.
This is a tough one, Barbara.
Next, under new business, we have a proposed revisions to the University Student Code of Conduct, and Peter Dejan is gonna handle that with Maddie Panetta.
Morning, this is nearly up to par with Barbara's parking. And we're looking for approval. This is a twice-a-year event. In your package, you'll see the content. Maddie did all the heavy lifting on this, so I'll let her do the talking here.
Thank you. My name is Maddie Punnett. I'm the Director for the Office of Community Standards. Our university student conduct code was established to set forth the conduct that is expected of our students. Undergraduate, graduate students, and professional students all have to abide by our code if they choose to be part of this community. During the spring semester, we concentrated on special efforts, reviewing for consistency, for inclusive language, and further adherence to new federal and state policies, particularly the Dear Colleague Letter on Harassment and Bullying, which was dated October 26, 2010, and the February 14, 2013 Office of General Counsel Guidance on legal issues surrounding employment applications. And the committee also concentrated on several risk management issues, including fire safety and some personal safety issues as well for students. So we do have a packet. It's about 4 pages. There are just several changes to language, several changes to some particular issues. But we're just asking for your approval on updating the conduct code so that we can proceed with this semester's changes to the code. And we have already reconvened and working together with Raul Sanchez for some Title IX issues, with a new Title IX person.
I looked at them, they all seem pretty reasonable. I'll make a motion to approve, second by Diana. Any comments or questions?
I just have one question for you.
Sure.
When you're talking about the excessive consumption of all of the liquor opportunities that the students have, you mention and you classify within the campus confine, you have no jurisdiction on your campuses that are probably illegally being occupied in the town of Brookhaven or the village of Port Jefferson for that same opportunity. Does that law apply to those folks too, who are off campus and renting?
We do speak with those students and have disciplinary conferences with them on how to be a good neighbor with those students. And we are working together with our University Police Department and our University Police Department if any complaint is provided to us by any of the Suffolk County Police. So we do address some of those issues with those students, but it is in their jurisdiction.
It is in their
in Suffolk
jurisdiction.
County.
So that's
Police
why you
Department
sort of
jurisdiction.
compartmentalize this
Yes.
into just on campus.
Yes.
I see.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much,
Thank
Diane.
you.
Okay. Anybody else have any other business they wanna bring before the council? Diana?
I just wanted to ask a question. This is Hispanic Heritage Month, and I know there was a new hire to your team. And I was wondering if we could have an update as to our diversity outreach, both for staff and students, maybe at one of our next meetings. Since that is a new addition to your team, and we'd love to meet him and kind of
We'll
grill
have
him.
both Raul Sanchez and David Ferguson.
That's great.
to come.
Thank you.
So we'll do that.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Anybody else? All right. Hearing no other business, motion to adjourn by Jean, seconded by Diana, all in favor, I'm sure.
Yes.
Have a great day, great
Thank you.
weekend. December,
Very good. Thank you
December
very much.
9th, December 9th is the next meeting, Monday, December 9th, at a place to be determined.
Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you.